bar, I'll crump with you, sweetie. What's going on, y'all? I'm your co-host, DJ.
I'm your co-host, Will.
And this is Review Anew, the podcast where we typically look back at the filmographers we grew up with as fans and analyze their works as adults. But today we have a special request, a very special request from Tyler Clark. Thank you so much for your request. And if you want to request a song, movie, or album for me to review, you can always hit that Ko-fi link for one-time donations. I should have the link around wherever the heck you are listening to this. And today, the person who requested, Tyler Clark, they requested for us to review RIZE, the 2005 documentary about Krumpin.
Yes.
Man.
Oh.
Yo.
Boy.
Like, just out the gate, I want to say to you guys, this shit was heavy.
Like when you asked me if I would be willing to check it out for the show, I'm like, yeah, sure. I thought it was gonna be like
think nothing of it. Like, oh, this is a
I thought it was gonna be like a Black Panther thing
dance,
or like a civil rights thing, which it kind of is a little bit of both, but it's like so specific. I'm like, and I'm like, RIZE, and then I saw clowns, and I'm like, DJ, what the fuck did you get me into, man? What is this?
What are you making me watch?
Yeah, like I wasn't upset, but I was very much like perplexed.
Where is this going?
I was not bored one bit, just watching this. I'll say that.
And I'll say this movie got a couple of tear-jerking moments from me, man.
Yeah.
Like maybe 3 or 4 watching, and then I watched it again, and it still made me like well up when it got to certain points. So it was just like, I went into this thinking like, oh, it's just going to be a documentary. We're going to just be learning about the world and it's going to be fun. But there are moments where it so digs into the reality of these, you know what I'm saying, innocent cats out in California's lives that it just like really fucking touches you, man. So yeah, this is the David Lachappelle directed film. Not that David.
No relation.
Right, it's so weird because they're like prominent at the same time in the late 90s, early 2000s, but they have nothing to do with each other.
This would have been around the same time like Chappelle's show was on. So it's a that's really,
like it would have just been. It would have still been in syndication where it was like, you know how it is, like when the show is on, it goes off, but it's still like people still watch it after the year it's off because Comedy Central still trying to make money off of exactly. So yeah, today we're looking at RIZE, this documentary about Krump and about Krumpin and how where it came from, you know what I'm saying, and the origins of it. And I love things like this where you do know such specifics about where something originated from. Because in this documentary, we kind of get it immediately. It's like, oh yeah, Tommy the clown, he was the original dude. And what's so great about it, like as you're watching it, right? We're just fucking going into this shit.
Let's go right into it. Because like I mean, like Krumping, there's no other real way to kind of get into it. Because it's
okay. So just starting off, like I remember always like hearing about Krumping in the 2000s. It was just kind of like a background thing. In fact, I remember VH1 around the time this documentary came out, probably like, when they did their best week ever and talking about something.
Right.
I remember specifically there was like a gag about how like, oh, Krump is big and it's getting big in the East Coast Bay Area. And then by the end of the episode, they're like, Krump is already out of style. Oh, wow. And I just remember being like, oh, okay, you gotta, this is a show about like, weekly stuff. So they gotta like take the piss. But it's just like, I mean, all right. Like, whatever.
I mean, Krumping has lasted longer than that weekly show has. I remember that show
that's
too.
For sure.
But damn.
and like just by fact of there being like all these competitions that sprang from it and stuff like that, So it's just kind of like just incredible to see, out in the real world, but like, especially pointed to in this documentary. And then on top of that, see, I remember that especially feeling like a bad joke because wasn't it 2013 when The Simpsons made that Krumping reference?
Was it 2013? Yeah, because when you made...
I'll crump with you, sweetheart.
Yeah. So Krump has lasted, just a little bit longer than people. And you know what's funny? Like throughout,
I still see it every now and then in a dance battle.
Yeah, because it's still a legit because when you watch it, it's so clearly like really cool and unique looking. Like when this movie starts, you just see it just starts off just showing you just people Krumping and the way that the way this camera so lovingly records these people and gives them the room to show off their art in such to show off this incredible art in such a in such a way that gives it the respect. And then you see it is so insane. It's like the next level of mosh pitting. They're just so intense with it. But then the way they're dancing, see, I feel like the way mainstream Krumping is always seen. It's just people doing the like pumping in the front thing. But there's so much more intricacy to it. Like
you see like different muscles, like especially at the end. But you see different muscles activate in different ways. Like everything seems like it feels random. Like, okay, remember during...
It feels like it's all evolving in real time to the different people who are doing it. You know, there's no set thing. Yeah,
it feels a lot more. This made me take crumping a lot more seriously than at first. Like, I always thought it was impressive to an extent, but remember, like last year, they were at the protest. There were two people like crumping in front of the police for BLM.
Yeah,
and that was one of the first things that came to mind. But then I watched it, and I'm like, oh no, this is like lifeline. This is keeping people out of gangs, off the street. Like, it's all positive and competitive, but it also like has a interesting kind of root to it. There's a lot of
absolutely.
There's a lot of, in terms of dance chronology, this has ties to both like the present and the past in a lot of different ways, down to the face painting.
And in fact, when I first, when they were first describing what was happening, just to wrap up, the very beginning, when you see them dancing, it's more than just, the pumping, right? Like, motherfuckers are climbing up gates, climbing up shit, and still, dancing while doing it and moving their bodies. Like, it's one of those things, you're watching partially because it's so incredible, but partially you're like, is someone gonna get hit? Like, is a fight gonna happen?
They're to RKO somebody from the fence with a dance move.
But it's so weird because, they seem to have such spatial awareness that it either doesn't happen or whenever it does, it looks like it's planned. Like, you can't tell if it's planned or not because they'll, push people and then they'll do something, but it's, clearly oh, boom, it's my turn. Let me get my shit. You know what I mean? So, wait, was that mean or was this a routine that they worked on? It's really hard to tell, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty seamless to tell, what is calculated and what is kind of freestyled, or if any of it is freestyled, or if any of it is you'll never know because it all if you've ever been to a dance performance or done dance from really experienced people, it looks gorgeous and it flows beautifully. This is kind of an extension of that, but it has the flair and not attitude, it's performative nature of hip hop. It has that arrogance to it.
It has this visceral edge to it because, like I said, as you're watching it, it does feel. It has that sort of, for lack of a better word, 3D effect to it, where it just feels so in your face. You know what I mean? With how they're moving, it's fucking incredible. And then just going back to it, when they interviewed Tommy the Clown, the guy who originated the whole thing, he was talking about how, hey, there was lots of gangs. That, there was a time where I was getting a whole bunch of money doing drugs. But then, I went to jail and was like, hey, look, there's only three things that can happen when you out here, hustling and shit. It can either be, you die, get shot, or go to jail. And I went to jail. And I was really happy that that was all that happened. So I decided to take advantage of my second chance, And it was just really that simple. He was just and so I was just yeah, I'm not going to screw up the second chance. Okay, let's do something with this. And it just naturally evolved out of the sense of I enjoy dancing. We know that there's, tension in the streets. Hey man, this is something fun I can do just for the kids. You know what I'm saying? To keep the next generation have something fun to do. And it's fascinating to hear him kind of start off. So, when you have that, when you come at it, with just the aesthetic of what intense dancing with clown outfits, how ridiculous, it's that initial thing. But then as soon as you look into the root of it, oh, of course he was wearing clown outfits. He was doing birthday parties at first,
right?
And doing the, and
still kind of is.
Yeah, and then of course you have this initial audience that's there, and of course kids want to see someone dancing really intense like that. That looks really cool. That's really fun. How many other these how many of these poor kids are getting a show like this, a special show?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's personalized. He's shouting their names. He's rapping with them. He's dancing with. Look, if Pennywise was crumping, it would be a completely different movie.
Right.
So what Tommy the Clown kind of brings to these kids is not only it's fun. It's performative, it's wholesome, but he's also extending it community-wide, because, he knows how bad it can get firsthand, and he's like you said, he went to jail, he's like, boy, I'm glad that's as far as it went, and I saw how bad the streets were kind of going, and how easily kids can fall into these negative lifestyles, so I wanted to create an environment that, and he wound up being essentially a father to, was it Compton? Not Compton.
The Bay Area.
The Bay Area. Yeah, LA.
Yeah.
So like Southside and everything. It's like he's just like a father figure to this, like a community of 20 kids of various ages. Like, did you do your homework? If you don't do your homework, you can't clown this week. And they be on it, just like, oh man, I can't clown this week.
Yeah, and it's about more than just like, just one person. It's about like the idea of found family and community as the movie goes on, because it shows other people's stories of how they had to deal with, they lost their mom to this, their mom was doing drugs here, and, the father, left them like all these things, but then you kind of saying like, and then we formed a community, and then, I'm this, it was like, at one point you see like this female pastor is like, hey, what was it? There's Tie-Dyes, who's like the big one, and then there's Baby Tie-Dyes. Yeah, and he's the one that kind of got like, sort of just adopted. It's like, hey, we sort of picked him up and boom, we doing this now,
Yeah, like, and they call her mom and everything.
Yeah, and just the fact that it harkens back, like, okay, so, crumping is like, it takes the competitive edge and makes it so real in your face, but when you look at it and take a step back into, like, the history of hip-hop, like, in the 70s when breakdancing was kind of coming up, like, it really is the similar argument that they were making. That it's just like, hey, instead of doing like gangster, we all know this shit's about competition and being the best. Okay, how about we make it about like dancing and being the best instead? Like, and doing these spin kicks and stuff like that. But what's funny about that is that it's really the proto version because like, with that one, it's still like the competition and look how good I am at moving. But then when you move into this, it becomes so much more visceral in how like the movement is, so it's really working on that energy. You know what I'm saying? And as the movie goes on, they talk more about how like, oh man, there's this one beautiful scene where I think it's Lil C. He's like crumping against like the fucking sunset, and it's like beautiful, and he's like, and he's this really like live. Shot,
it was Lil C, it was Miss Prissy, and it was another dude because they showed the full sequence at the end, but like the little shots of them.
And the sequence when it's all of them, it looks like it's fucking the best looking part of the movie.
So pretty.
It just really made me go like, can we see the music video that this is from? The long form music video where they just like some fucking long ass Michael Jackson long form video where they're just fucking dancing. I just want to see this uninterrupted for an hour,
Because it was just like, it was beautifully shot, lit, angled and everything. But I mean, like with the part where we're at and talking about history and everything, what kind of blew me away, I don't think this is getting ahead of ourselves, but it's like, we're talking about the history and interconnectedness of dance is not only how crumping kind of weirdly has some roots in African dance, but the thing that blew me away was them mentioning stripper dance.
Yeah, at one point,
and like they specifically labeled twerking. And what was weird is like watching it from a 2021 lens and looking back at 2005, it like, it was booty popping and shaking and everything and like hips gyrating. But it weirdly didn't seem nearly as sexual as it does now. Because, like, kids were doing it, guys were doing it, girls were doing it. And I'm like, but it didn't seem like
it didn't feel gendered and sexualized.
It didn't feel gendered or sexualized. It just felt like that's just a part of the dance.
In fact, like, because the way they talk about it was just like, it was like one day we was doing this dance. It was like over the weekend, all of a sudden this kind of came, and it's like, all right, I guess we're doing this now. So everybody bounced with it. And then, you saw this one interview where this person's like, I've seen some 4-year-old boys, popping and doing their thing. And, you hear some parents go like, oh, I'd never let my little girl do that. But then, the guy goes like, but there's nothing inherently sexual about what was happening. No one's dancing on her. No one's doing anything. It's just them doing the moves and hitting the moves. That's what it's about. And within this context, we know it's about that. And so it's that, like, respect for the craft of the dance. And it's like, yo, that's such a nuanced, like, perspective.
It was so weird to, like, look, like, this is only 17 years ago when this was shot. And just thinking how drastically things have changed. Like, people have always had, like, Beyonce, Ashanti, Sierra. There's always been, like, hip gyrate dances where, in that context it was sexual. But here, I didn't get that vibe at all. And it's the same dances. The dances haven't changed, but the context has. And the situations have. Because, I'd see, it was, once we get to the big battle that happens later on, there was somebody that was like, it was a dude on the floor on his knees, busting ass. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he was getting it. Like, in the middle of a battle, it's like, I've seen, like, have you ever seen, like, legendary, like, drag balls and stuff like that? Even the context for that is very different for that type of competition. So it's it's weird how much range there is to it. It's really crazy.
Yeah, and there's one thing I say, what is that Jamaican dance where it's like, you do the boom, like big, like...
Oh, like the dance hall dances?
Yeah, but it's like your legs are up where you're like, doing that and then bouncing it back real hard.
Yeah.
And I saw one person just doing that so effortlessly where it's just like, oh shit, that's so cool.
Right.
Like, they were doing it on someone who wasn't expecting it. And just like everyone's having fun, but it was just kind of like, so what was the point? Oh yeah, so going to the very beginning of the movie though, the one issue that I would say is my little niggling issue in the back of my head was how the movie was framed opening up. Now, they did put it in, so like, they showed, Watts riots, 1965, and showing all the destruction, right? And then they showed like the 92 riots, and showing
the Rodney King riots, I think.
Yes, the Rodney King riot. Now, I feel like the Rodney King riot is, more immediate with what it meant, because as soon as you say Rodney King, like, it's with the understanding that, like, oh yeah, the reason why this specifically popped off was because of inequality, right? But there's just a certain framing, at least around the first one before we got to the second one, where, like, again, I have more context for it directly, right? Where you see the 65 Watts riots, and my brain, had the moment like, I don't really, like, know why that started, but I feel like if you don't, like, if you are looking at it outside of, a person who is intellectually curious about what black people are going through, especially in 1965, like right before the fucking civil rights passed, right? Like, but if you don't have that context, I feel like the average person who's not paying attention could look at that and be like, oh yeah, well, black people just, look at them destroying their neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it doesn't really do a great job at illustrating the context of what those riots
framing
were about.
it. Yeah, that was what it just threw me off a little bit, because it just felt like it allowed for the interpretation of that opening scene to be, and look how in disarray black people are, because, well, and then of course the racist ideology can seep in, right? Maybe they're just like, maybe they're just not as civilized, you know what I mean? But I bet you if you look deep enough into it, it'll be like, oh yeah, some injustice happened, and then they respond, and I wish there would have been at least a line about that, right?
No,
like,
I think that's good. I think that's fair.
Because the one line that there was a quote from a white dude, and you know how the news stories at the time will be, where they kind of like glide over certain things. Like, literally the quote was, and I made sure I got it down, for the 65 Watts riot, it was like, civil rights leaders were quick to deplore the unrightful lawlessness, and MLK vowed to make sure to do all in his power to make sure the events in Los Angeles didn't happen there or anywhere else again. And I was like, the way that's framed is so slippery and can easily lets oppressive white power off of the hook. Because it's so like, wow, look at this black community burning, but I mean they are just kind of animals, so isn't that just what, it just like, I know that's not what they were doing, but I just really wish that there was just one extra bit of dialogue, like somewhere early, to help frame the understanding of like, this isn't just, oh, because black people just don't know how to get jobs and they're crazy. It's like, no, shit is happening that allows for the conditions, right? Like the pulling away of like factory jobs and things of that nature. In fact, there was one guy later on, it felt like he was actually about to get into some shit, but it felt like they cut him off right before he really got into it. Because one person was saying, like, it was like, oh yeah, man, I know what they're saying. Like, oh, they look like some thugs, some heathens. They look like, why does it look so like hardcore? And he goes like, no, we're expressing our oppression. And I was like, oh my God, let him speak more. And then they cut it off. I was like, oh,
let him speak.
Cut his mic on. Speak.
but no, I think you make a good point, because unintentionally, because the it's also rather short for a documentary. I'd say it's like
it's like 90 minutes. Yeah.
But I see what you're saying about, it's like, it's easily to misconstrue so you're essentially you're introducing a problem and a solution, but you're not giving the context to what led to the problem in the first place. Essentially, like, why is South Central LA so bad? And it's like showing these historical acts of retaliation from black people, some that are a little bit more destructive in comparison to this one that's a little bit more constructive. Not saying what's right or wrong, that's just like the circumstances of it. But it's not telling you explicitly what led, like, it says these are the Rodney King riots. Well, what led to the riots?
Right.
That led to South Central being, rough how it is. Or
because it wasn't just, oh, we heard the news and everyone went crazy. No, it was specifically the verdict that made that happen. Am I wrong?
Right. It was a response to civil injustice, but it didn't have just that tiny bit to kind of inform the viewer. It's like, now I have some understanding of the Rodney King riots, but not like you said, not everybody does, and that could have been something that they could have added at the beginning. I think that's a fair point. I mean, honestly, the only criticism I would have had didn't really come about until like near the end of it, and it got addressed literally at the end, because I was like, man, I wish we could see more extended sequences of, them battling, and we did it. Well, I guess I do have a minor one that's attached to that.
The big battle that kind of like okay. I will say this though: the one thing I didn't like is that they showed Asian Krumpers at one point during an interview, and then I think like a white.
They didn't show it till the end. That's what I was about to bring up.
Yeah,
like the Asian Krumpers. And the one white Krumper that they didn't show, he's like, yeah, people like to judge me because I'm white, and they'd be like, oh, he's white, he ain't got no rhythm, but they didn't show him to the last 10 minutes.
I know. I was like, oh, come on. Like, let's show them some love. Let's show the Asian, especially the Asian people, some love. Like, that's what I wanted to see, I
almost got taken out, too, because one of the Asians had I think he had braids or cornrows, and I'm like, boy, that's the image right there, isn't it?
Look, 2005, man,
I know. I wasn't judging him. I just thought it was funny to see.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I wish I could have seen like a black and Asian solidarity shot.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Because
a fun battle. Yeah, like a fun battle, and then sort of like at the end, like, oh, it's all good. Like just something like that, the camaraderie. You know what I mean?
Right. I would love to see that. Where's Timothy Delgado at a time like this? He used to dance.
Indeed. But I did like, again, it felt like if you listen to the snippets from the people being interviewed, they are saying things that are alluding to these things. Like one person just straight up says, if you're drowning and all you have is a board, we're reaching for that board. That's what this is for us. And it's like, that's what one person said. He was like, there are neighborhoods, smaller inner city neighborhoods where they have little things like maybe ballet and dance, and music school and little after school programs. But what do you do to the neighborhoods who don't have that? You know what I mean? And that's what we did from that. We had to build from that. And that's that sort of like incredible, it's the way I think about hip hop. When people talk about hip hop, it's just like, oh yeah. I heard some interview with someone, I think it was like Mathematics from the Wu-Tang Clan who helped produce. Back in late 80s, early 90s, he was talking about like, the music programs were getting defunded under like Reagan and shit like that. And it's like, okay, so we don't have the instruments, but I can still beat on the tables, you know what I'm saying? I can still take my mom's records and like mix it. It's like, it's really that like we are making something out of nothing because you're literally taking everything away.
Yeah, it's kind of a dark optimism of how many times that like creativity has been spurned from the black community, essentially having to make $1 out of 15 cents, like taking what little we have and using it for good. Like, where you're in a situation surrounded by drugs and gang violence as a result of like systemic issues and probably like over policing of and over criminalization of neighborhoods and lack of access to resources. All you really have is your body, and we're like, if we got a body, we can dance. If we got a body, we can make a beat. If we can make a beat, beautiful. We can dance. Like it's beautiful, but it's also tragic that it has to like hit that point that like this, because I think what was interesting is there's a part where it was just an extended sequence of just showing them dancing, but it was like contrasted showing different African countries dancing with their facial makeup and their traditional.
I really like that. Yeah,
I did too.
Because when you hear the music, it really does look like their movement just fits with that music. Even though for the first 20 minutes we've just been hearing hip hop, and that just felt like the context. But then it just got recontextualized just through hearing those African percussions, and it's just like because it cuts between clips of like African dancers maybe doing exhibition matches, dancing, putting on makeup, and it cuts between them too, and it's just like. Yeah, I really am. It doesn't feel like there's much of a difference.
Not much change. It's still competitive. It's still team oriented. It's still very, very cultural. I thought that was a really great illustrating part of the movie. The documentary. I hate to see my people put in such rough situation, because I think that was really what was hitting me in the heart, is like seeing and hear, like, because you hear all these different stories, it's just like one after the other after the other. It's
my God,
without Tommy, I don't know where I'd be. He's like a father to me, and I'm just like, it's just one guy choosing to be nice, and he's making a difference for tens of hundreds of lives. Just because he's like, dance, just dance, bro, and they're like, yeah, okay, all right. I'm going to teach the community. It's like, you going to gangbang? No, I ain't going to gangbang. I'm a dance. My daddy might gangbang, but I'm a dance.
But ain't it crazy how it like, there's that like, we were taking so much, but like, it was that simple. Like,
right.
Like the fact that it's like one dude just made it say, you know what, I'm going to do this. Like, that's how I want to do it. And then like, it just feels like, it's that optimistic, like, I'd hate to put it up, one person can change the world, so, because that feels like, well, then don't do anything, folks. No, I feel like it's that inspirational, like, you could be the person that can make
you could be the one.
Yeah, exactly. It's so fucking cool the way it just sort of has that optimistic, I don't know, man. It's a crying, it's a sad happiness that is this movie.
Yeah, that's why I use the term, like, it's a dark optimism almost. Like, the situation that led up to it is tragic. However, there is still, like, it's still a optimistic story that's still ongoing, because Tommy's still around. He's still dancing,
Right.
He's still clowning and everything. So it's not like it's gone away, which I think is good.
And like I said, well, and just like I said, like, there's tournaments and competitions now. Like, that feels like that.
Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, that feels like that rises shit to the next level, right? Because it is like, now this ain't just a local thing. This is now, like, this is on the same level as, whatever other type of music competitions out there, whatever other type of dance competition. Right. This is just our gutter version of that shit, and you will respect it because it looks fucking good. Get to that second. I just wanted to bring up what was funny is that, like, the music in this also does a really good job at, like, helping me, because, like, there are lyrics
it does.
in the song.
Did you see the lyrics to it?
Yeah, it really
good.
Like that's like part of the story too, because they're just talking about, like, yeah, man, this shit came up gut. Like, it doesn't feel like it's just a rap song that happens to be kind of hyping. No, it feels like somebody asked them to write about, like, fucking our movement and be like, okay, well, this is what it's about. And they keep bringing up, I noticed, because they would give say, like, hey, y'all think it's a fad, but that's all right. Y'all can go ahead if y'all want to. We just gonna keep doing this. It's like, I love that. I love the way that they look at it. Right? There's no one who's going like,
it was thematically focused. It was competitive, but it also kind of told a narrative. It's like what you know about growing up in the streets in jail, raised in hell.
Right.
Had to get out on bail, but here we go with the dance. I'm like, whoa, wait. He's saying, let him spit.
Yeah, he's just telling the story. I think
there
was one part where you see, like, this really old white couple, and
that was funny. That was cute.
Yeah, it just shows them sort of looking on, and you're not thinking anyways about it, But then it goes, like, you hear the lyrics go, like, fade to black, but now it's open to the white. Everybody know it's tight. No violence. It ain't a fight. And, like, you see them, like, doing an especially incredible move. And then it cuts to, like, the old people, like, just looking shocked, like, whoa.
What are the Negroes doing next to? Oh my God, Harold! He spun on his head.
And then, the little kids came up to them, and I think they gave them something or something.
Gave him a little, like, balloon dog. I'm like, that's nice.
It was so sweet. Oh man, yeah. Just the way, but yeah, in the lyrics, how they go, like, man, like, this legit is not a fad. We legit don't care if it gets popular. This is about what this does for our community. I love that.
I do too. Yeah, I think that the purpose of what clowning and krumping kind of does for the community is a net positive.
Yeah, and then there was one song on there where it actually, you heard a UK Krump rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you were hearing, there was one beat and it sounded particularly minimalist, and I was like, that's kind of like what, like, kind of UK, flows do. And the guy was rapping. He was rapping very hype, so I wasn't really hearing, like, what the accent would have been, because it just sounded like he was just being hype in general. But then he has one lyric where he goes, like, feel free to hate. I ain't trying to be your mate. And I was like, oh shit, that is a UK rapper. That's definitely. And then I just had that shock, like, moment of, like, yo, this shit went from LA to the UK, like it was nothing.
From LA to UK definitely sounds like a hybrid drill album title.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's its own insane, intense energy. And I love the one part, again, the motherfuckers in the shit, like, right, they ain't dumb. Like, they know what the stereotypes, they know what they refer to are, but it's just like, this is our home, and we deal with, this is real life when we live here. You know what I'm saying? And he says, like, and he makes that point about, he says, in the inner city, we're always only thought of as sports player. Sports players. Oh, you can play football. You can bang your head up playing boxing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, do those sports that impact your, usually your mental health, or basketball. Like, it's like, it's either these two dangerous sports, which is the main one. Like, boxing was basically the thing, like, until like Mike Tyson, right? Like the 90s, you know what I mean?
Basically, it's like you either box, play basketball, or play football. And it's like, well, I don't do any of that, so I'm a clown.
Right. So, Baby Tie-Dye especially, there's a scene where we kind of get to his story, and it's fucking heartbreaking. And it's a scene where you see him in church doing Krump dances, like, for spiritual, the spiritual interpretation of the words his grandfather was saying for the sermons. So it was just
was that
like
the one with the gospel underneath it?
Yeah, and it's like it's a lot more slow, but it still has that control where it's just like, oh, this looks like ballet, but it's not ballet because it doesn't obviously doesn't have that form, but there's still a beauty in what he's doing. And again, like the kid just having that moment of like, well, I just wanted to interpret into my body what the words were, and it's just like that's such a clever. Like
that's
exactly
basically what praise dancers are. Praise dancers are just crumpers for Christ. Which, I never thought about it like that, but that's exactly what they are. Down to they have the face paint. They have the outfits. Yeah, praise dancers are just crumpers for Christ. They're clowns for Christ.
But when you watch it, it doesn't seem like stuffy, liturgical, like, oh, this is silly. Like, as you watch, you know what I'm saying? It feels free. Like so genuine. Yeah, like, it is fascinating, this fucking movie. Because, you think like, oh, crumpers for Christ, what it is doesn't that just sound a little silly on its face? But then as you're watching the scene unfold, you're just like, this is beautiful. And this is these people finding, like, community,
spirituality, community.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and especially if you ever seen like an authentic praise dance, it does kind of generate a similar response because it's an interpretation of because with the crumping here, it's a little bit more. I'd say in the actual battles, it's a little more free and loose, but it's like in different contexts, it can serve different purposes. I think. Yeah. So it's like in a religious one, it can serve a more spiritual context. I think once when we get to the end, it's a little bit more emotionally motivated in certain areas.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because it starts off, it's just like, hey, it's just individuals expressing themselves, and then it can go beyond just like the abstract expression. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like to have it something that is specifically channeled, for your faith. And like I said, when he's dancing against the sun going down, it looks really beautiful on the beach. So as that scene opens, you hear someone say, Krump is a closed chapter of your life of hurt and sorrow and anguish that others don't know about. Mm-hmm. And so like that sets the stage for when he starts dancing against the sunlight. And then you hear his mom go like, maybe he's angry that he's seen me work all my life, and yet we still seem to be in this standstill pattern, maybe because of this, maybe that. But just like that initial like sort of, very directly capitalist adjacent criticism, right? Like, he's angry because he's seen his mother working as hard as she can all her life, and yet we're still here. It's like, that very direct anger calling out what the fucking bullshit is, like, this goddamn movie, it's so much deeper than you think it's gonna be.
You thought this was just Krump. Nay, there's narrative too.
No, good sir.
No.
Then there's the
background to these Krumpers.
Right, there's a scene where in the interview, Tie-Dyes and Baby Tie-Dyes are next to each other, and the mom's there, and he's going like, they're talking about the situation with the dad who had committed suicide, and
man, that one was rough because like he was like, I was just like spending time with my dad, and then I got a call from my mom saying he shot himself in the head in the backseat of the car. I'm like, whoa.
And
we got to work on mental health in the hood. Secondly, after we get through all this crumping,
it's the way that they talk about it so like casually, right? Like, because it's the sort of like, well, this is what happened. Like, it's this weird sort of like, it doesn't have a heightened sense through how they're talking about it. It's this sort of feel like, and we just kind of had to deal with that, and there's kind of like just sort of I don't know if languid is the word, but just a sort of like listless way that they're saying it, and then there's the emotional break moment where Tie-Dyes is talking about Baby Tie-Dyes, and he says, "Hey, I know Baby Tie-Dyes looks up to me, and I'm trying to be someone worth looking up to for him, but in some ways I look up to him, and I know I never tell him that, but I do, and and it was like that moment like." Where Baby Tie-Dye is like, he looks kind of like he's joking, like, what, you look up to me? But then it's like, he kind of like takes his hat and kind of covers his face like, oh, and like he's gonna cry, and it's just like, oh my god, like it was just such a beautifully like moment of just like, oh, my sensei respects me,
right.
Like, it just hits you so hard when that happens. So it gets the part where, they start talking about battle zones. He says like, all right, we know gangs are, it's about competition, all sort of stuff. And so it's like, all right, we channel that energy into the music. Say everybody wants to be number one, somebody wants to be number two, and someone wants to just be noticed. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like, all right, I thought he like basically, and he all but admits it. He just go like, I just brought back dance battling, with makeup, like
which he did, but they were good battles, and they were
and
that's when we
they
kind
don't
of got
feel.
into. Well, this is when we started to get into kind of the not so much turf wars, but like the clowning versus crumping whole deal.
Yes, yeah, and it is funny, seeing that distinction, like, this is the original style, and these are the people who have, like, mutated from it, have made it their own thing, and it's one of those things where, like, you're watching, and of course you're seeing the differences, but it's like, every time after a take, like, they're always kind of laughing when they say, like, oh man, so-and-so thinks they got on us, and you know, there's still the respect, right? Like, all the guys say, like, we gotta stop for Tommy, no doubt, and it's like, but you know, you get bored after a while, and we did some new stuff with it. You know, it's like, that's just how it kind of went, you know? And so it's like that mutual respect, but they're still kind of like, but our style's the best. You know what I mean? Like, I love that balance and just the beauty of that true balance there, where it doesn't feel like they actually are at each other's throats. It's like, no, it's about the competition and about, you know, getting out your energy through that. Like, I love that there's that understated understanding. Like I think earlier in the movie they said, like, you know, if you're outside and you're just looking at it, it looks like, whoa, is it just like, are these gangbangers like getting mad at each other and stuff like that? It's like, no, it looks like that to you, but for us who have the context of knowing what we're trying to escape, we already have the context and we understand. You know what I mean? It's so crazy, And then, okay, so, let's get to the dance battle. Yeah. Because, like I said, that's where...
big battle. What was it called? Was it the Battle of Great West Forum Battle?
I believe so, yeah.
The Forum, the Battle at the Forum.
Yeah, the battle at the Great West Forum, and he like says it like very. He's like sitting on. It's like I think it's like in black and white, and he's like sitting on his bed and has like this leopard skin thing, so it looks like especially like he looks like he's the big bad villain, you know, in the video game. Like they think they can take me. Let's take it to the forum. Yeah, but then like after that take, like you can tell he just busts out laughing and everyone's laughing because it's like, dude, we're having a good time. It's not serious, you know. Like I love that. But yeah, so they do the competition, and it shows you like the big competition. Everyone's coming in. He's dressed like to the nines, but like, you know,
as much as Tommy the Clown can be dressed to the nines.
Right. He's got this big spray painted American flag white shirt that he's got that looks so, you know, like it's such an iconic look. Like he's got the typical clown fro, you know, but with the white face and what do you call it? Red balloons on his face. And the American flag. It's just such a specific look, you know, that feels like this could have been the poster, you know?
Can we talk about because they showed a lot of different segments of different parts of the battles before they started really counting points. But the battle with the girls, with Miss Prissy and the other girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yo. I think that was the only one they showed like 100%. That was like intense because it was going back and forth like tennis. I was like, it's like, oh, she popping that. Oh, she doing that. Oh, she, like, I think the other girl dropped into a split at one point and the crowd went crazy. You know? And just like, she was like splashing her with water. I'm just like, yo, this is.
Yeah, if anything, watch this whole scene right here.
Right. It was like, I'm like, I felt, because you could feel the like competitive energy. Because it wasn't like, oh, it's two women getting sexy. No, it was not that. This was muscles moving. This was maneuvers. You know, this was dissing. Like, if you ever seen like a B-boy battle, this was the Krump equivalent of that. It was intense.
Yeah, and they'll have time. Like, it so looks disorganized. So, like, you'll have, like, it's just like, you can sometimes barely even tell who's on what team because people are just moving around the stage, going like, oh, that's insane, oh, or like doing little assists, or like they'll jump off of, like they'll use some of the background of like the actual stage to do something. So it just really feels like you're just like, is this planned? What are they doing? Like, it has so much like, just bubbling and crackling with that live energy that you want from a show, you know what I mean? Like,
And it really is like a show. Like, it's a fantastic performance. Like, I think the whole auditorium was packed. Or at least the floor was. Like, that.
Yeah. I didn't see an empty chair.
I didn't either. You know, like, people were standing up, going wild, cheering with all the back and forth. Like, when they started counting the points, seeing all the crazy moves. One of them I have seen before, though. It was, I don't know if you remember this, in one of the battles. The dude went up on one knee and popped the other knee up like he was pissing on him like a dog.
Yes.
I don't know why that move always stays in my mind whenever I see it. I'm like, why is that always funny? Because it's like a specific type of disrespect.
Right.
It's just like this is kind of the climax of the piece, because it's weird how it's structured, because it gives a history of like the community and like Tommy, and it loosely introduces you to dances and different members of like the clown crew and some of the Krump crew. But it doesn't really set it up as like the team battle is a focus, despite it being kind of the climax of the film.
Yeah, there's like a really
sense.
long denouement where it becomes like, goes into like Tommy's life a little bit more, and then it just kind of again just spreads out and goes to just bringing up these other people. Again, I feel like there's a bit of a like where I want to praise like the structure. Maybe they were doing something. It did kind of feel like it petered out as it got to the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like I think that the thing is if we're talking about like criticism before we get to the fallout from the climax of the battle, I guess that's probably what maybe the main issue is that some of the elements aren't well like connected in terms of setup. Like I can see how you like it gives you the middle and the afterwards, but it doesn't really build up to like you were talking about at the beginning. It doesn't really set up the context for why the community got so bad, or for the like if the battle was supposed to be the big moment leading to the fallout, just by coincidence, because it is a documentary. You can't like plan for.
Yes, that's the thing about it is too, right? Because it's like here's a documentary, like you are doing the like. There's no script. It's just like whatever happens.
Yeah, it's just
like
life.
We're filming it, you know, and it's around that Michael Moore era, right? This is 2005, so like. This was the era of documentaries with personality, right? Where it really is about like, really giving you a slice of life. And hey, maybe I'm actually talking to the camera about what's happening. It's not just a anodyne, just a antiseptic sort of thing. Like this is real life for these documentaries, So like this kind of hits that in this hip hop bend to it that I love so much. Like as someone who used to really like those, Michael Moore documentaries, right? Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, if we've all but said everything, let's get to what happens.
That was pretty much it. It's just like some of the elements aren't weaved into setting up other things. Yeah. But I think it feels like it's still effective.
It feels like it feels like what happens is if this was a mini series, it would have been really cool. Where it was like could have gone more into these individuals' life, because it felt like at the end it was like, and let's not forget these people. Well,
it's like let's throw them in. But yeah, so the big battle happens. The clowns win, don't they?
Yeah, the clowns win. But before the competition even happens, he says, like, look, man, I love this competition, but, like, no matter who wins, if I win, they win, like, hey, man, it's not going to make a big deal out of it. The point is that we're having fun. And he keeps to his word. Like, when he wins, it's like they enjoy it and have a good time, but they don't rub it in their faces, It's just kind of like, all right, boom, we got it. Like, I enjoy that, and let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it never feels rude. Yeah, it always feels like there's sportsmanship, And so you see him like as you see everyone like slowly moving out, and you see him just kind of like picking up like a bag, a box of his stuff, and he's just kind of like walking, and you just kind of see him that sort of like the afterwards like, all right, this is what we do, it's time to break the set, you know what I mean? Yep. And then it cuts to black, and you hear a phone call, and it's just like all of a sudden you see Tommy just like bowled over, just kind of like on his knees, just like down. Crying. Yeah, and it's just like no, and you're just like what's going on, and it turns out that his house had gotten broken into while the competition was happening.
Yep,
and a whole bunch of, like they trashed his place and someone stole a whole bunch of stuff, and it was devastating watching this man who was so happy and being so positive.
It was so like if you didn't know it was real life, you would have thought Dave Lachappelle was like, well, we need some drama in here.
Right. Like, there's no way.
Somebody robbed this good person. Like,
right. And it's like, how could they? Like, he's so nice. It really is like watching a movie, you're like, and then all of a sudden, like, someone does something, like, it's like in a movie about Elmo or a Sesame Street character, and then someone, like, does something mean to the Elmo, character, like, he rubs his face in his ice cream, you're like, whoa, why would you do that to him?
Like, in the shortest way, you robbed a clown.
You can't feel good about yourself.
There's no there's some low shit You know, like punching a Girl Scout is clown. This is punching a Girl Scout bad. You robbed a clown, and not just a clown that taught kids how to dance, like poor, you know, down bad kids, and that was encouraging them to like go to school, be a good person, participate in their community, you know, stay off of drugs and get like. Not only did you rob a clown, you robbed a wholesome clown.
Right.
That everybody liked. No one had a bad thing to say about Tommy.
Yeah. You kept waiting, right, for that moment where it's just like, oh, but, you know, it's going to be, like with all documentaries, right? Like, hey, no one's, like, perfect, right? Yeah, you... like, no, this is a solid dude.
Yeah. Like, I was so scared because it was, I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I was so worried that it was a grown black man who was interacting with a bunch of kids. I'm like, oh, please don't let this be going where I think it's gonna go.
Like, he kills kids or something like that, or
or something worse. Is like, no, he's just nice. And it's like, oh, it's like, so somebody robbed a literal good person clown.
Someone robbed someone who was even better than I thought he was.
Yeah, who was like, you know, probably at some point had other kids in his house, had a community center and shit. Right. So his house got broken into the competition. So it's almost like Icarus. He was at his height and then immediately fell. Like I think luckily no one was hurt, which is
but it's just kind of like a, you know, when anyone gets there, like it's an uneasy feeling, right? Like, well, does this mean something? Are they coming back? And like you're automatically just, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have to be like someone getting shot for it to still feel like, oh my God, I'm not on solid ground right now, you know? But yeah, and it was so like disheartening. You see him like sitting on the couch, just like deflated, and you know you see the little girl come out and take his hat off and turn it around. It's like, and see, there you go, and now you know you're feeling better. Right. And it was just such a silly little
the blind optimism
like,
of children.
I can't cry in front of these kids, like you know, like it was. It was like, again, like, it was that, like, you when you see it, the initial sort of moment happen, you see that, you know how in real life when you see someone, like, cry, they don't just bawl out, right? Like, they're, like, trying to keep it together, and he's just like, it's always, and he's like, you can see how he's, like, can't articulate his thoughts, he's just like, it's always people doing stuff, man, like, it's just like, it was just so, like,
and even the community
just wanted to give the man a hug.
Yeah, the community seemed hurt by it too. Because it's exactly what you and him said. It's just like, you know, you try to do something nice for people. He's teaching children to dance.
Yeah, but you know the issue is, it's like, hey man, there's people that are just kind of on that shit sometimes. And what sucks is that, you know, it like the way the documentary could have done better care to, like we said earlier, like make it clear, like, hey, like why this oppression is happening, right? Like that is an oppression that's based on that, and that's what causes these things to happen. But you know, you still have to account for personal responsibility, right? The motherfucker still made the decision to go into the house. They could have just said no and not done that, right? So
you could have easily not robbed the local kind clown,
right? Like, but you know, it was just.
I'm going to say it to reinforce how freaking asinine it is.
Of course, yeah. And it's like, but you know, it was just someone who was an opportunist, and they were like, oh, competition happened, he's not going to be there, boom, let's ransack his shit. You know, like, you know, it's probably just as simple as that. You know what I mean? Like, someone just not caring about the community and just being like, hey, you know, oh, he got a PS2, let me get that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but yeah, so after that moment, and then it's like a 1-2 punch. It's like that one, and then you hear about this other girl who had gotten shot by
the teenager again, opportunist, stray bullets. Like I think she was only 16, 17.
Maybe like 15, and her friend was like 13
maybe
or
15,
something like that.
Yeah, like her and her friend got shot just in random stray shooting, and I'm just like, God damn.
Yeah, and they showed her dancing, and she was
good.
Like, she was like bending over herself, where you see like the legs go over. It was like, yes, oh my God.
And he wound up losing his house. He had to move into an apartment.
Yeah, and you know, they were being optimistic. It was like all the while it was happening, his friends was like, "Hey man, maybe that's just your sign that you need to get up out of here. Maybe that is a sign that you know." It's just like immediately that sort of like, let's think positive. Let's like all we can do. The best thing we can do for ourselves is think positive, so let's do that. You know, it's just, just the eternal optimism in the face of all of this darkness.
Right, and to think that a lot of these communities are still like this. And the fact that he's still, as far as I can tell, still doing
Yeah, it's like this documentary came out and, anyway, life just kept going. They just did their thing.
Yeah. And it's just like, hey, it slow him down, but it doesn't stop him from trying to do a good thing.
And honestly, watching this kind of made me go like, I honestly don't want to see what the exact update is, because I just want to go like, you know what happened? He did get his mansion. Everyone, some billionaire backer out there saw this documentary and was like, you know what, bro? I got you. And funded the whole community, and everything was good. Nothing bad ever happened again.
And he continued to be nice and teach children with to this day.
Let him teach the children.
But
yeah. Did you have any other part you wanted to bring
up? The last bit. So I had mentioned earlier that one of my initial, I guess, kind of on off things was I kind of wanted to see more of the dancing in the battles. And then that was just like the last 15 minutes was straight intercut shots of different, and that's when they brought the Asians and the one white guy in. Right. But like people of all shades, shapes, sizes. We got that beautiful one in the that L.A. Creek. It was Miss Prissy, Lil C, and the other. Oh my God!
The way their bodies were moving, it was
you could see everything.
Yeah, just dripping with sweat, and you could see every like pectoral, every fucking muscle moving, and it's moving like the way they were moving. It was like they were made out of fucking rubber band or some shit. Like it didn't look real, and it was cool. It's like they got like the hip hop clothes shit where it's like the drawers are sticking out, like especially puffed out over the pants, but it's so part of the style, and you're seeing how they're moving, and it so looks like hell yeah, that's fucking. You know what I mean? The goddamn like it looks so especially fucking cool. Like of course you wear it like this when you do this dance. You know what I mean? Like
right.
It was so goddamn just iconic looking, and just seeing them dancing and just like again, before you see scenes where like people are dancing and like you see the anger and you see the frustration, but then seeing like the dancing and it's all like happy and they're just doing the different moves. It's just like, it's just eye candy. Like I just want to watch these people move forever.
Yeah, because like the lighting, the way it was shot, they're alarmingly.
I thought it was from a music video. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're surprisingly like toned and oiled bodies. Like
very oiled. It was
very very shiny oiled, like just abs, biceps, and everything. I'm just like, boy, this is a lot.
But it was kind of like it was kind of like the black version of showing the Grecian sculpted bodies but in motion.
It was. That's the exactly what it was like. It was like Grecian sculpturesque. Except Compton, but LA.
But hey, ain't that what's beautiful about it?
Yeah, it's just like
It's like we're beautiful too. God damn it,
we are, and it was, but it was just raw energy.
Yeah,
like it was poetry in motion. Like it's like watching, like catching a lightning bolt as it arcs before it strikes the ground.
Right.
Like, have you ever seen that footage slowed down? That's what it was like.
Your mind, it just feels like your mind is perpetually having that moment of like, how did they know to do that part? How did they know to move that? How did they know that was going to be behind them? Like...
Because like in comparison to B-Boy, it seems like Krumping almost seems like easy to learn, hard to master.
Oh yeah, it definitely looks like, oh yeah, there's basic moves you can do, but if you want to stick out and matter, you come up with your own stuff. Like that's really what it is.
Or if you want to battle or like be creative. Like I think somebody did a flip and landed on their back, and I'm like, whoa, Jesus.
Yeah, man. I think there was one like little kid who did like a split that was so straight. I was just like, your jaw will drop.
My balls rescinded. How did you do that?
Thank God I didn't hit puberty yet.
Yeah. I think one of the girls was like, Krumping, and she opened like her shirt like the Hulk. I'm like, oh Jesus, she's strong. Okay,
right.
It's like, yo, cotton not supposed to rip like that, ma'am.
Right. Oh my God, this is
like in the heat of the moment and like strategically throwing it at the person. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. This movie is so filled with like the full range of human emotion as you're watching it, right?
Yeah.
Like joy, sorrow, anger, you know.
Yeah.
You feel
How
it
do you
all
describe Rise? The entire emotional spectrum in one film.
of the human condition.
Yes.
But yeah, so a resounding, definite watch the movie. Of course, like, it's not perfect, you know, but it is so worth the price of admission that you're just going to be like, you might, like, this is one of those movies you're probably just going to be rewinding parts just to be like, wait a minute, let me see that again.
Yeah, I was like, did I just see what I thought I just saw?
Right.
Wait a minute. I didn't know black people could do that.
Oh, don't you love how at the beginning of the movie they put that little disclaimer, none of this footage has been sped up?
Yes. I was like, when that came up, I'm like, what am I about to get into?
Right, and as you
What
watch
is
the
the
movie,
Flash?
like,
What is this?
yeah, right. And as you watch the movie, it's like, you know, at first it's like, oh, what a joke. Oh, these dances are so good. But as you're watching, it's just like, no, I did actually need to be told that, because my brain would have been like, no, did you fast forward? How do they move that fast? Yeah, like where's the Flash at? How they get in the Flash Force or whatever the fuck it is? The
It's
speed
like you
force.
try to check the speed. It's like, is this 0.25? Did they speed this up? It's like, no, they didn't. They're just good. Like
And matter of fact, maybe I might even want to see like a 4K slowdown just to see the little movements going. So, because they'll do certain movements that are so fucking quick that you barely have time to breathe. Like, there's one person, they were dancing all up here, like all in the upper part, and then they like popped down and did like a fucking Russian fucking kick dance real quick 3 times and then popped right back up like it didn't even happen. And I was just like, what the fuck was that?
it's like, so you gonna act like you didn't just do what you did, Vladimir? What was that?
Right.
Vladimir Jackson? What the hell was that?
Hey. But yeah, this, like I said, definitely worth the price of admission. Definitely watch this movie. It will make you feel some type of way.
You'll feel something leaving this, because like
that's a guarantee.
Yeah, I think at the end of it, I wound up just feeling, I don't know, just like weirdly kind of hopeful for these kids. Well, I guess they're grown now since it's been 16 years, but
yeah, it is kind of like, is there gonna be the Rise too?
that's my thing. I'm just like, so where would you continue this?
Rise again.
Rise again. Rise up. Rise again.
Yeah.
Rise, the final battle. Rise, world tour, whatever the hell. Because like, I just did a quick Google glance. Yeah, Tommy's still clowning. He has an Instagram.
Yeah, and I looked up, like, I was looking up, you know, because, you know, stuff can peter out. It happens. So I was like, hey, are there still competitions happening? And I was like, oh, yeah, there was a competition, like, year before last. I was like, oh, okay, so they're just still doing this. It's just happening. Like, and it's like, it makes me feel like, good, please let this continue. This needs to keep happening. And poo-poo on all those motherfuckers who are like, Krump and he's just clown. Like, after this movie, you really fucking go to bat for these people.
Yep. It's they're all doing what they're good at.
Yeah.
They're
And
all,
thank God, because
thank
society,
God.
you know, society told them that, oh, no, there's just nothing for you. So I guess, I don't know, do whatever you want. I
know,
guess turn the crown. I don't know.
If you can't find
like,
a way, you got to make a way.
Yep. And they fucking made a way. So if there's nothing else we got to talk about, let's wrap this puppy up.
Yeah.
Because
Can't think about
I gotta go, like, I don't know, contemplate the greatness of life and all of its iniquities and mysteries or something.
I have to go figure out how to crump myself to a 6-pack.
Look, see, but I'm so afraid of looking like a fool. Like, nah, man, you can't. Like, it's like we're really having fun. We haven't touched it, but your ass better not be whack. Look, we're not.
Oh
playing.
no, I was telling somebody the other day that I'm just like, I love black people, but we're the most ruthless critics. Like, if you are bad, you will know. Do not fail at the Apollo. Do not fail at Def Jam.
Right.
I would not want to fail at a Krump battle. Like, I try to do a
no.
jump, trip over my shoelaces. Boo. Take
right,
his
your
shoes.
feelings gonna be hurt.
Take his shoes. Take his face paint. They splash you with water, all your paint melt off.
You don't deserve this paint.
They
You
start
are
wiping you with
unbefitting.
rags. Like, no,
Right.
no,
You
not
are
my Krump identity.
Yeah, you are unbefitting of a clown.
Yeah, I mean, but that was a legitimate threat. It said, hey, if you don't do
Right.
your homework or you start messing around with gangs, you can't dance with us no more. It's like, what? I can't dance if I don't do my math. That's a legitimate threat. If you don't finish math on time, you can't dance this weekend.
And the thing is, like, that is so, like, if I was someone who was into like dancing and like that shit where it's so that self-expression and that type of shit, oh yeah, I could totally like that incentive to straighten up and fly right is so immediately viscerally there in a way that, you know, yeah, exactly, in a way that, you know, oh, having some like fucking police officer come to your school and say, don't do drugs, kids, because if you do, I'll have to come arrest you. Like, no one gives a fuck about that, you know, like
negative reinforcement doesn't work, but like a positive reinforcement with an association does, because it's just like you give them something good to work for that matters to them. Like if you give a kid something if you give a kid incentive and then, you know, kind of instill morals with it, they're gonna turn into a better person. And then it's like, hey, if you don't do this thing that you need to do to make you a better person, then you won't be able to enjoy the things that you actually like to do.
Yeah,
it's a good lesson.
Because life should be enjoyed. God damn it!
Right? It's like your life should not be suffering. Sometimes you just, I mean, shit. When I was in college studying, I would stop in the middle of my cram sessions to dance break, and my roommate would he'd nod approvingly and go back to looking at his notes. Over here,
get your energy out.
Right, I'm just like, I gotta get the energy out because I'm stressed and scared, nigga.
No, dude. I ain't afraid to say it, man. I dance to some fucking shit just cause, man. Like, I dance to music all the goddamn time. I mean, hey, if anyone sees my streams, they know I'll dance on the. What was that fucking clip? That Busta Rhymes shit. I couldn't even control it when it came on. It was like, don't this shit make my people want to jump?
I mean,
yes, it does, Busta Rhymes.
That's what my feet tired now, because I was dancing my ass off at BlurredCon. I woke up the next day, I'm like, damn, my feet hurt. Nice. I gotta dance again.
It's like, damn, my feet hurt. Oh, it's Saturday. It's another dance party.
It's another day to dance.
All right,
I guess.
Let me get like, you know, some water and like a lemon or something like that, and then I'll be back.
Yeah, let me fuel up before y'all turn on that Meg the Stallion.
Right.
Start Krump and Meg the Stallion is a hilarious image.
Oh, I can't. I gotta look it up now. It is.
that is an infectiously funny image to think of. Oh.
When. Oh shit. So this has been the Review New Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. If you want to hear all the exclusive episodes, be sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/rapcritic, because that is where the episodes are now, as well as Rap Critic episodes. So all my stuff is basically on there. You get to hear everything I do first when it comes to the movie podcast and the episodes I do. So head over there. What are you waiting for? Don't even worry and don't even think about it. Just head on